here we are. This is Sex Love Psychedelics, and I'm your host, Dr. Kat. Bringing you psychosexual conversations that will leave you intellectually turned on and hungry for more. The work that I've seen you speak on, including the panel that we talked about, you addressed the importance of supporting clients and connecting with their ancestors, connecting with ancestral resilience as a tool to be able to help them heal or even just find their inner strength. What does that look like in your practice or with the psychedelics? What have you seen in those spaces or even for yourself?
I think it depends on the person, but one thing that I can say is through working with ancestors in terms of sexuality, there's definitely the space of healing sexual trauma through sexual pleasure. Like, if we give our bodies permission to engage in sexual joy and pleasure eroticism, we also give our ancestors who were harmed permission to open up that aspect through us as well. And this, different lineages or traditions have different beliefs about ancestors, but in some of the lineages and traditions that I study under, we are them, right? Like, their DNA is in us. Inside of my body is everybody that ever came before me.
Mm-hmm.
And so through me, they get to experience healing. And that goes back and that goes forward. So, like, situation with my mom, where all of a sudden she was sexually open. She healed things for our ancestors in the past, and that also impacted me, and it impacted my daughter in a very real, tangible way that we can see now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, I mean, to me, this would kind of involve like maybe more specific questions so I could see exactly how what that would look like, because there's so much opportunities, there's so much possibility for
Mm-hmm.
ancestral healing through sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many facets of sexual harm, but there's also so many facets of sexual joy and pleasure that we
Mm-hmm.
get to explore as well.
Yeah, I've had clients do their own research after some of our sessions where they were like, "Oh, I didn't think about connecting with my Persian lineage to discover, some of the, ancient goddesses of fertility, and and connecting with that, even though there's a whole lineage of trauma, sexual trauma in my, on my maternal side, and and that was really powerful for her to be able to tap into that, the symbol of that, but also, embody that strength and what that represented for her.
But also the way that sex, joy, and pleasure were okay or normalized, like in ancient, times, right? It's like this is another thing about the way that ancestral connection can heal us. Like, you gave this example of a Persian client connecting with fertility goddesses, but what about the ways that sexuality was normalized in society? I think about not necessarily Persian, I think of more about like the Greeks, and it was like the idea that like actually sex workers were like necessary for
Mhm.
like the sanity of the community. Like, you needed to have a place where you can go. Or sex workers were sacred because they were also like priestesses of these goddesses, or there were sacred sex rituals that were occurring. And then one of the things that there was a moment for me in West Africa, there's certain ethnic groups that have what they call secret societies, which is really just indigenous practices. They're not secret societies, they're not cults, they're just the indigenous practices of the people there. Um, but they have to keep it secret because of colonization and criminalization and demonization and all these things.
Sure.
But there's and I'll get you the name because I haven't looked at this in a while, but they had like these sex schools where like people would go and learn they would have a professional that would come and teach them about sex.
Wow.
So like if you were going to get married, like this is what you needed to know. But it was focused on sexual pleasure, like not procreation. And then recently I read an article about I don't know if it's in West Africa, it's definitely in the top half of Africa. Might have been Central Africa, but there's a community or ethnic group where the auntie will go and have sex with the groom to make sure that he was actually going to be offering a pleasurable experience to the bride. And if he didn't, then she would teach him what he needed to know in order for him to offer a pleasurable experience to the bride. And it's like, yeah, yes, yes. Where is that? And also, can I be that auntie? Like, I'm down for this job. And it's like very normal. It's not something that is bad or crazy or incestuous. I mean, it's not his aunt, it's her aunt. It's not something bad or crazy or incestuous. And it just normalizes that sexual pleasure is an important part of being in a relationship. It's an important part. It is like the fact that someone is sexually fulfilled, not moving out of the individualistic mindset is not just a benefit to that person, but it's a benefit to our whole family. It's a benefit to our whole community. And so getting knowledge like that, we're like, that's what my people did. How do I get back to that shit? Or if I'm not all the way to get back to that, how do I let go of the shame that I have for whatever I'm doing? If that's something that pre-colonization, pre-contact with Europeans, pre-oppression, that was our normal, So I think that those are also the ways that tapping into ancestors can offer healing and expand and blow open sexual pleasure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's so, gives me shivers. That's so good. Well, that was fun. Thanks for tuning in, lovers. And if you want to experience more ecstasy and sexual liberation, head over to sexlovepsychedelics.com and learn about how you can join me for any one of my online or live events. And while you're there, grab my free guide on sex and psychedelics. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please contact your healthcare provider and local law before pursuing any of the products or psychedelics discussed. And one final note here. I make this show specifically for you. If you're loving the show, then be sure to leave me a review in iTunes or Spotify to let me know. Happy to be here and happy to serve. I'll see you next time on Sex Love Psychedelics.